The Messerschmitt Bf-109 pilots gathering in their crew rooms across occupied France in the spring of 1940 felt a confidence bordering on invincibility, for every intelligence briefing they received reaffirmed their belief that the Royal Air Force's most numerous fighter, the Hawker Hurricane, was hopelessly inferior. Their officers laid out the facts with clinical detachment, pointing to the Hurricane's lower top speed, its thicker wing section, its heavier frame, and most damning of all, its partially fabric-covered construction that looked to German eyes like an embarrassing relic of a bygone era. To the Luftwaffe, locked into a belief that modern warfare rewarded only sleek metal monoplanes capable of tearing through the sky with mechanical precision, the idea that the British relied on aircraft sheathed in doped linen seemed laughable. The Bf-109E could reach 354 miles per hour, leaving the Hurricane's 320-mile-per-hour ceiling in the metaphorical dust. It could climb faster, reach higher altitudes, dictate terms in a dive, and disengage from a fight whenever its pilot pleased. Everything on paper suggested the Hurricane, a design dating back to 1934 and entering service just before the war, was nothing more than a transitional stopgap the British had failed to replace in time with more modern fighters like the Spitfire. The Luftwaffe's tactical planners, studying charts and diagrams with the detached certainty of men who believed numbers told the whole story, concluded the Hurricane represented a minimal threat to experienced Jagdflieger. Veteran German pilots, such as Werner Mulders, fresh from combat in Spain where he had dominated Republican fighters with ease, assumed the Hurricane would perform like the biplanes they had outgrown in training, perhaps maneuverable at low speeds but fatally slow and unthreatening in vertical maneuvers. Each briefing reinforced the same narrative: bounce the British from above with disciplined formations, unleash a short burst, climb away, and return at leisure to finish them off. German bomber crews were similarly reassured that, under the protective umbrella of the Bf-109 escorts, the Hurricane's flimsy airframe and obsolete construction made it the least of their worries. What the intelligence summaries failed to capture, however, was the complex and messy reality of air combat, where theoretical performance figures often dissolved into irrelevance the moment aircraft clashed in the disorderly chaos of turning fights, energy trades, and split-second decisions. While the Hurricane's fabric covering appeared archaic, it concealed a steel tube framework of remarkable strength, a structure designed deliberately by Sidney Cam and his Hawker team to absorb battle damage that would cripple an all-metal stress-skin aircraft like the Messerschmitt. A cannon shell punching through a Hurricane might tear linen to ribbons, but the underlying support structure often kept vital components intact, allowing the aircraft to return home trailing tatters yet still controllable. Moreover, the Hurricane's thick wing, mocked by German engineers as aerodynamically crude, generated enormous lift at lower speeds, enabling turn radii the Bf-109 struggled to match without stalling. These were qualities that never showed up in the neat columns of intelligence documents, but mattered immensely once real bullets filled the sky. The reckoning began on May 10, 1940, when Case Yellow shattered the uneasy calm of the phony war and Hurricane squadrons in France scrambled into a sky suddenly thick with bombers, fighters, and the terrible noise of mechanized warfare. No. 1 Squadron, operating from Berriobac, climbed through broken cloud to intercept a formation of Dornier du 17s, their Bf-109 escorts sweeping down with the confidence of predators who believed their prey had no teeth. Yet as the German fighters dove, expecting the Hurricanes to break or attempt futile climbs, the British pilots instead tightened their turns with astonishing aggression. The Bf-109s, slicing downward with too much speed, overshot their targets and found Hurricanes snapping onto their tails in tight spirals the Messerschmitts could not easily replicate. In seconds, the theoretical energy advantage evaporated, replaced by the terrifying reality of 8 synchronized Browning .303 machine guns sending converging streams of tracer toward German airframes. 2 Bf-109s spiraled downward in that first chaotic engagement. Word spread quickly among German units that the Hurricane, far from the easy victim intelligence officers had promised, was unexpectedly dangerous in a turn and disconcertingly durable under fire. By May 12, This pattern repeated with alarming frequency. Number 73 Squadron, engaged over the Meuse, demonstrated the Hurricane's resilience when squadron leader John Freeborn's aircraft took more than a dozen hits through its fabric fuselage yet remained fully operational, allowing him to finish the attack before returning to base for repairs that took only hours. Meanwhile, pilots reported with growing unease that hurricane formations refused to scatter when bounced, pressing attacks with unnerving determination even while hit. The emerging statistical picture contradicted every German assumption. Hurricanes claimed more than 300 German aircraft during the Battle of France while losing around 200 themselves, an exchange ratio far better than anything the Luftwaffe had expected from a supposedly obsolete fighter. But the true test still lay ahead, across the Channel, where the RAF would be fighting for its homeland with its back against the wall and where Hurricanes, not Spitfires, would form the backbone of fighter command. By July 1940, Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding commanded 59 operational fighter squadrons, of which 32 flew Hurricanes. It was this rugged, steady workhorse, not the celebrated Spitfire, that would carry most of the burden in the ensuing Battle of Britain. Keith Park, commanding 11 Group, devised a strategy born of necessity. Hurricanes would attack the bombers while Spitfires engaged the escorting fighters. This division of labor ensured the Spitfire's superior high-speed agility could counter the Bf-109s, but it also guaranteed that Hurricane pilots, flying the numerically dominant fighter, would face the heaviest defensive fire from German bomber formations and would suffer accordingly. The Luftwaffe expected the Hurricanes to crumble. Instead, they tore into bomber formations with relentless ferocity. On July 10th, the first official day of the battle, No. 32 Squadron roared into a formation attacking a convoy, their Hurricanes diving through the defensive fire to strike the bombers at point-blank range. Pilots later described how their aircraft shuddered violently as all 8 guns opened fire, how the concentrated devastation of 160 rounds per second ripped through engines, wings, and crew compartments. Bomber crews, accustomed to opponents hesitant to approach head-on, were stunned by the Hurricane's ruthless closing attacks. Throughout July, engagement after engagement revealed the Hurricane's grim effectiveness. No. 501 Squadron smashed Stuka formations attempting to strike southern England, their ability to turn inside the dive bombers' escorts and their 8-gun broadside producing catastrophic results. By early August, Göring launched Adlerangriff, the Eagle attack, expecting to break the RAF within days. Instead, it marked the beginning of the Luftwaffe's steep losses. Hurricane squadrons flew multiple sorties a day, often rearming and refueling in under 15 minutes. Ground crews patched fabric with doped linen while German mechanics labored for days repairing damaged Messerschmitts. Then came August 15th, Black Thursday, when Göring committed his largest coordinated assault, expecting overwhelming force to finally crack British resistance. Yet Hurricane squadrons from northern England to Kent shredded bomber formations with chilling efficiency. In the north, No. 72, 605, and 607 squadrons tore into Heinkel formations approaching from Norway. 16 bombers and 7 fighters were shot down without a single bomb hitting British soil. In the south, the fighting was even fiercer. No. 111 Squadron threw itself into a formation of more than 60 Dorniers, firing at ranges so close pilots could see German faces. Hurricane after hurricane returned battered but intact and was back in action within hours. By nightfall, the Luftwaffe had lost far more than Göring's projected 40 aircraft. 75 were destroyed and 34 rendered unserviceable, the majority falling to the obsolete British fighter. September intensified the catastrophe for the Luftwaffe. On the 15th, now commemorated as Battle of Britain Day, Hurricane squadrons tore into massive bomber streams bound for London. Czech pilots of No. 310 Squadron, flying Hurricanes with vengeful fury born from seeing their homeland occupied, ripped through bomber formations, with Sergeant Joseph Frantisek claiming multiple kills in minutes. No. 242 Squadron, led by the indomitable Douglas Bader, formed a deadly firing wall that German crews described as a continuous sheet of bullets. By day's end, the Luftwaffe suffered losses so overwhelming that Hitler postponed Operation Sea Lion indefinitely. The invasion died at the hands of Hurricanes more than any other aircraft. Pilot accounts reveal why. They spoke of 8 Brownings firing together like a single monstrous weapon, of the Hurricane's forgiving handling that allowed even rookies to survive tight turns that would stall more advanced fighters. They told of aircraft coming home with entire panels shredded, with coolant pouring out, controls frayed, and yet still flying. Flight Lieutenant Robert Stanford Tuck once landed a Hurricane with its fabric peeling like parchment from an ancient manuscript, cables exposed, glycol leaking, but structurally intact. Another pilot survived a 20mm cannon shell passing cleanly through his fuselage, missing vital components by inches, damage that would have destroyed a stress-skinned Spitfire or Bf-109 outright. German pilots began recording their frustrations with candid honesty. They noted Hurricanes that would not break off attacks even when damaged, that turned inside Messerschmitts with infuriating stubbornness, and that produced a terrifying volume of fire. The plane they had mocked as a relic had become their most dangerous adversary. Operational data gathered after the battle proved devastating to German pre-war assumptions. Hurricanes flew 27,000 sorties and accounted for 55% of RAF kills. They maintained serviceability rates consistently higher than Spitfires or Bf-109s. They could be repaired faster, flown more aggressively, and survive hits that destroyed more modern aircraft. Air combat was not a contest of maximum speed but of resilience, firepower, availability, and tactical suitability, all qualities the Hurricane possessed in abundance. The Germans, humbled, rewrote their doctrine. They abandoned their preferred free-hunting fighter sweeps, forced instead into close escort roles that neutralized their speed advantage. The Hurricane had changed the very nature of Luftwaffe operations by sheer necessity. Adolf Galland later admitted that German intelligence had underestimated the Hurricane entirely, focusing on sleek technical metrics while ignoring the brutal demands of real combat. The Hurricane's design philosophy, prioritizing robustness, repairability, ease of handling, and overwhelming fire concentration, proved far more effective in attritional air warfare than the elegant minimalism of the Bf-109. Its legacy extended beyond the battle. American designers incorporated Hurricane lessons into aircraft like the P-47 Thunderbolt. Soviet engineers studied Hurricanes delivered through Lend-Lease and adopted similar structural resilience in later designs. The Hurricane went on to serve from the Arctic to the deserts, from Malta to Burma, evolving into cannon-armed and rocket-equipped variants that supported troops for the rest of the war. More than 14,000 were built. It may never have been glamorous, but it was indispensable. And perhaps its greatest lesson is this: in war, the machine that survives, that returns to the sky again and again, that allows ordinary pilots to achieve extraordinary results, is the one that truly shapes history. Not the sleek marvel praised on paper, but the rugged workhorse that bleeds, endures, and fights on. The Luftwaffe had gone to war expecting easy victories over a relic of the past. Instead, they encountered a fighter that embodied the harsh truth of air combat, a truth written in fire, smoke, and the remains of Messerschmitts strewn across the fields of Britain.